The revolution is about to begin. You picked the right time, but the wrong guy. Those are the words that came out of the mouth of the rapper Kendrick Lamar last night as he featured as the first hip hop artist. Revolution is about to begin. Slight technical difficulty with the live show. As I said, those are the words that came out of the mouth of Kendrick Lamar last night as he featured as the first rapper to ever be headlined in the Super Bowl show, the most viewed show in the United States of America. Well, a performance that some people have said was massive for Black culture. Well, for other people, it was way too controversial and actually a very poor taste. So, was he really the right guy or the wrong guy to carry this Black revolution? We'll discuss and give some opinion around that. But also, Donald Trump, as you know, froze funds dedicated to the USAID. That's the United States Aid Agency that disseminates funds for aid and humanitarian efforts around the world. Well, he wants to freeze it for at least 90 days, even though that is being challenged in court. But that decision seems to cause a lot of chaos and a lot of confusion, a lot of pain around the world because many countries do rely on those funds to save lives. So we will discuss how these two events are relevant to the Global P.A.C in general, our mission going forward, and what we can really take out of all these two topics. So there you have it. Let's go right in, fasten our seatbelts, and let's get to work. All right, AfriKili family and Global P.A.C Nation, welcome to another edition of the Global P.A.C Show. This is your host, Tony Fumu Simba. Very excited to be with you on this Monday. And on that note, happy Monday, February the 10th, 2025. Still within our Black History Month. We did a show about it last week. So happy Black History Month to all of us. All right, and before also starting, let me just take a quick time to thank every single one of you who have supported this show, this live concept, this live Global P.A.C concept, since we launched it a bit over 3 weeks ago. Really, your support is much appreciated. And if you have not subscribed to this show yet, let me just take a moment to remind you and ask you to please just hit that subscribe button. Only takes about a second, but your help is tremendously needed for us to grow this platform and reach all the goals that we've set forth for 2025. So hit that subscribe button, but also keep watching, share, send your comment. Your feedback is needed to grow this. And let me also let those of you who might not know, we finally had our first podcast conversation, which was posted on the website, posted yesterday. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend. So after this show, just go and click on that video. It's a conversation with a tech entrepreneur discussed about life, leadership, entrepreneurship. It was a very insightful but also fun conversation. So that's the first of many. As you know, going forward, we will strive to continuously bring you guests that are prominent and that are very relevant to the Global P.A.C. And that's the Global Pan-African Communities, to our Global Pan-African Coalition work. So that's Black people, whether in continental Africa, in the United States, in the Americas, in the Caribbean, so issues that are relevant to the entire Global P.A.C. So there you have it. All right, so let's go straight into our conversation for today. Two main topics, as I said, Super Bowl with Kendrick Lamar, USAID, how that's impacting the Global P.A.C. All right, so let's start with this whole Super Bowl situation. First of all, just a quick, I would say, summary. I'm pretty sure, many of you know what the Super Bowl is. After all, it was broadcasted in over 30 languages, 130 countries around the world. So it is one of the most viewed events, sporting event. But in case you might still be one of those who are not fully familiar with what it is, just real quick, the Super Bowl, that's the final, essentially, of the American football season. So you have the winner of this is crowned the national champ for American football, even though in the United States, being a very centric society, the Super Bowl champ is automatically dubbed the world champion. I mean, then again, there's not really many American football competitions around the world. I know there are leagues in the UK and some places, but anyhow, so yeah, so the event happened yesterday. It is one of the most viewed events, sporting events in the United States alone. You have, I think, estimated over 130 million people, I think, that watch a Super Bowl. So it is very significant, right? And typically, people that are featured for the halftime show are people that are very relevant to American culture, people that are obviously very popular, that can drive ratings. So it's a very commercial event, right? As a matter of fact, talking about commercial, they typically will show commercials at halftime, which are very, very expensive compared to other commercial spots throughout the year. Because, I mean, as you know, in media, the more eyeballs are on your show, an event, or something like that, obviously the higher price tag you can attach to it. So people who have commercials during the Super Bowl typically will pay way more than in any other slot, and it's something that is has become very significant for American culture over time. Some people tune in just for the halftime show and for the commercials. So that's just in a nutshell what that Super Bowl is. All right, so what was the significance of what happened yesterday during the halftime show when we had the rapper Kendrick Lamar, the African-American rapper, being the first rapper in the history of the Super Bowl to headline as the solo halftime performer. So that was very significant. First of all, you had a historical perspective. As I said, it's the first rapper to have ever done it. That you would say is significant. It happens to be an African American. Now, yes, once again, we're talking about a first black person, first African American. Hey, we are in that world. We would all love to be in this 21st century in a world where we no longer have to, highlight the first black this, first black that. But the reality is what it is. The reality is what it is. And so that is still very significant that happened. There's also political significance to it. Now, President Donald J. Trump was part of the audience, so he went to watch a Super Bowl. He left at halftime, right before Kendrick Lamar's halftime performance. But he was there, and he was the first sitting president to have ever attended the Super Bowl. So that in and of itself is politically significant. Obviously, Donald Trump being who he is, but you also have a lot more political symbolism, right? Now, when Donald Trump was showed on the screens, there was a mixture of boos, but also a mixture of applause, which I think is symptomatic of what this nation is going through. There seems to be a divide, and so that was also reflected as it was being showed on the screen. You had Uncle Sam, who was represented by the actor Samuel L. Jackson during that halftime show before Kendrick Lamar performed. Uncle Sam is this figure that since the 19th century and so on has come to really, really represent the federal government, or this nationalistic symbol for the United States. Typically, the image would be this old person, this old white person with a hat, and he has all the U.S. flag colors around him, red, white, and blue. So he's a representation of the United States of America, the patriotism, the nationalism. Well, it was Samuel L. Jackson that played the role of Uncle Sam. So that in and of itself also was pretty significant, you would say. So that's another of the political symbolism. And you had the big one, so Kendrick Lamar comes out, and as he's performing, so he has this one stage where he has, first of all black dancers around him, but they're all dressed in the colors of the United States flag. People dressed in blue, red, and white. And then at some points they are set up on the stage in kind of like on the form of the U.S. flag, right? With the colors divided accordingly. And then boom, right down the middle stands, not Drake, stands Kendrick Lamar. We'll talk about Drake a bit later maybe. But yeah, so he stands right in the middle of what could have been like the United States flag. Now, there's been a lot of comments about that. What exactly that was supposed to mean? Does it mean that he is standing in the middle because this nation is so divided, and so he is a representation of that, of the division almost down the middle, with the political inclination in this country, the political partisanship in the United States of America? Or was it a sign for saying that, all right, so black culture is at the center of the United States of America? You cannot deny it. No matter how you interpret it, that was some very powerful political symbolism, and I loved it. I mean, that was just awesome. If you ask me, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of halftime shows or stuff like that, but I mean, to me, that was awesome. It was really, really, really awesome. All right, so I talked about the historical symbolism of Kendrick Lamar performing. I talked about a bit of the political symbolism. Now, how about the controversial aspect? Well, you have the first one. For those who have followed the entertainment industry, this rapper, Kendrick Lamar, has been in a bit of a feud or a fight with the other entertainer from Canada, Drake. And they've been going back and forth for quite a while now. In urban adage, they would say they've been having beef, or they've been dissing each other, and it has been deemed in a popular, I would say, culture that Kendrick Lamar is the winner of that feud. But it's been very significant in the entertainment circle. Well, there's this one song called "They Are Not Like Us," which essentially is the ultimate diss, if you would want, on Drake. And so people were not sure if he would perform that song or not, or if the NFL, which has been a very traditional entity, right, which for the longest have really wanted to keep a very proper, some would say, white image, even though the majority of the players have been black for a very long time in the NFL. But there were some uncertainties as to whether or not the NFL would let him perform that song. Well, that song was a Grammy winner. Let's just say, as a matter of fact, Kendrick Lamar, if you didn't know, he's a true winner, man. The guy has won, 22 Grammys. So, but anyhow, so he performed that song, and then, which was pretty hilarious, if you ask me. At some point, he looks at the camera. First of all, at the end, he said, "Game over," which essentially, is a dig at Drake. And before starting that song, he looked at the camera and said something to the effect of, "I want to perform their favorite song, but they like suing us because there's been legal action and more threats from the Drake side." But anyway, so that was part of the controversy of it. But that's not all of it. If you looked at some of the, I'd say, conservative point of view, not all, but some, there are some that were really against that performance. I mean, granted, it's hard to find a halftime show that usually is unanimous, right? That everybody just likes. But in this case, you had some pretty venomous criticism that came from some quarters of the conservative Republican side. And as I was just going online, I mean, I found a few interesting ones. There has been some things on X, formerly Twitter. For example, you have the former Republican gubernatorial nominee, Carrie Lake, who ran to be the governor of Arizona. She wrote on X, Twitter or X, she said, "Halftime show, 0, 0/10, to say that it was absolutely horrendous, according to what you have. This other, let me see here. I found quite a few ones online. You have, for example, U.S. State Representative, right, in the House of Representative Lauren Boebert from Colorado, who says that, "Tell me I am not the only one needing subtitles for this. I'm not the only one needing subtitles for this. Goodness me." So she needs subtitles for hip hop, or what is it that you mean? But again, some might construe that as being really racist. If subtitle for what? I mean, is black language different? Anyhow, you had another one which I found also kind of interesting. This one, this guy was saying, let me see here. He okay. So this was kind of crazy, if you ask me. This is from a right wing podcaster, okay, named Benny Johnson, who goes on X. He's very popular, but he says, "Hey NFL, Trump won." No kidding. Did Trump really win? Anyways, he says, "Hey NFL, Trump won. We no longer let talentless, mumbling, pagan, satanic cultists do halftime shows and pretend like people like it." Pretend like people like it? Really? So I guess according to this person, people did not like the halftime show. I'm not sure what planet he lives on, because obviously it drove ratings. Obviously the NFL wanted to show it in. Obviously a lot of people liked it. So to say that pretend like people like it, I mean, he's talking about himself, obviously, and some of his friends in his circle. And he says, "Hey NFL, Trump won." So I guess if Trump wins, that means that we can no longer let people like Kendrick Lamar perform. Anyways, so those are just part of the things that were being put out there about Kendrick Lamar and his show. All right, so let's not talk about the relevance, because I mean, you now know what this platform is about. Our Global P.A.C show, stands for Global Pan-African Coalitions, Global Pan-African Communities, issues. We discuss issues and we try to build coalitions, build bridges to elevate the image, change the narrative for all Black people around the world, in Africa, in the Caribbean, even in the United States of America, in the Americas in general. So what does this entertainment topic, this halftime show, rapper Kendrick Lamar, have to do with all of us? Well, first of all, I found that it's very relevant. All right. One, it's about continuing to break barriers. This was a first. So for Black people around the world, whether or not you like rap or not, but every time we break barriers, it should be celebrated. For the longest, this world, like white accomplishments were the norm, right? Every opportunity, especially in the media, to elevate people, for the longest, as you know, historically, white people were the norm, which is why until today we still have first Black this, first Black that, first. So this is to be celebrated for all Black people, whether you're a Black person in, no matter where you are, Africa, the Caribbean, and name it. We have to celebrate every time we break barriers, because over time, the more we break barriers, the more we're getting to a world where we no longer have to worry about Black people, white people, this. So we're all just there, right? That's where we want to arrive to. That's what we're striving to. But in the process, we need to celebrate every time we're breaking barriers, because hopefully as we break a barrier, that barrier is down, and we should no longer let those barriers be erected again. So that is very significant in that sense. So breaking the barriers here, it's racism. Fighting racism. I mean, I read some of the comments here. I mean, clearly racism is still a plague in this world. We all understand that racism on the basis of skin color was obviously a social creation designed to create division, obviously to justify the exclusion of Black people to certain opportunities. And so that is still part of the world. So events, anything that goes towards fighting that is to be celebrated. I know that there's many diverging view. So some people, especially in the Global P.A.C, outside of the United States, might misconstrue rap and hip hop as just some kind of vile music or something along those lines. To me personally, I would say that is a bit howdy, right? It's kind of need to get down from your horse sometimes. It is okay to have different tastes, different cultural tastes, different music tastes. Sure, that we're human. It is, diversity is fantastic. Diversity in music, diversity in everything, right? In art, you name it. But just to categorize a type of music as being uh, uh, music for gangsters, for non-refined people, that is so wrong. Uh, Hip hop is definitely an important part of this modern culture. It is part of who we are as black people and even white people, Asian. It's part of the world today. It's a music that was started by young black men and women as a way to just advance their uniqueness. Black culture is beautiful. And so hip hop is definitely a prominent part of black culture, just like any other form, right? So we should not be ashamed of that. It is part of black culture. And as that, I celebrate that. Oh, okay. Let's move on to the second topic because, yeah, man, every time we start this conversation, I seem to get going, I get fired, and then next thing you know, boom, it's 45 minutes. And here I'm looking, it's already been, 21 minutes? All right, let's move quickly to the second topic. All right, USAID, USAID, no matter how you want to call that. USAID. So Donald J. Trump froze the USAID budget. All right, initially said it was for 90 days to review a lot of the waste. So what exactly is this USAID, which had a budget of about $50 billion per year? 50, that's 50, all right? $50 billion per year. So this is the United States Aid and Development Agency that typically provide funds for many humanitarian causes around the world to fight diseases, poverty, education, you name it, around the world, okay? As a matter of fact, the slogan of the USAID or USAID, its slogan says, "From the American people." The implication being here that the hardworking American people give their tax money, and then part of that tax money is taken and given to other causes around the world out of American goodwill. At least that's the message that is conveyed, which is why the slogan says, "From the American people." Well, the fact that Donald Trump froze USAID for 90 days, which, by the way, is being challenged in court right now, well, is causing a lot of chaos, right? And a lot of pain and confusion around the world. For example, I was just reading something from the UNAIDS. UNAIDS, that's the United Nations AIDS Agency. So their director, who's called Winnie Byanyima, says that the AIDS epidemic could go up to sixfold by 2029 if the United States cuts its funds to support those aid programs, because the U.S. is one of the biggest donors. All right, so that's the situation. But here's what I would like to really, really talk about in this case. To me, this should be a wake-up call, quite frankly. I am not one of those who will just start saying that we need to start crying because the United States is going to cut that. Let's make something clear here. USAID says from the American people. But one thing that is clearly not communicated and that the majority of Americans do not know is that, the USAID program, like those $50 billion that the United States gives away to other countries, is not just free money. As a matter of fact, to me, it shouldn't say from the American people. It should be for the American people. Because you need to understand one thing. Yes, these programs, once they're given to some nations, there's sometimes certain discretionary choices in which programs to disperse the funds to, even though the U.S. always has an ultimate say, but it is ultimately to protect American interests. I mean, do you really think that all these like military bases, for example, that the U.S. has around the world, if you ask most American and who haven't served in the military about American bases around the world, they might not even know about that. But just think about it. Why do you think that a government such as this would just have multiple bases in so many different places around the world? They will tell you, national security. But there's some places where you don't even have conflict and you never had conflict. But it is obviously to maintain American interest. So understand that those USAID funds come with strings attached. And I can talk from experience here. In my previous life, there was a time for about 4 years, I was a senior executive in an international agency that administered many programs around the world, in the Philippines, in Africa, you name it. And so, being in that circuit, I can tell you, yes, in America, you can complain about the bureaucracy. At least that's the message that Donald Trump and his people are advancing. There's bureaucracy, there's spending, Doge with Elon Musk are trying to cut. But those funds come with a lot of strings attached. A lot of strings attached in those other nations. So, from my point of view, the Global P.A.C, yes, the Global P.A.C as a whole is impacted because it was estimated that last year alone, about $6.5 billion of this USAID fund went to Africa. And when you talk about the Caribbean and Latin America, it was about $2.5 billion. But come on, folks, let's be serious here, all right? So say we cut those $6.5 billion. Do you know how much money our politicians are just wasting by embezzlement and money that's just diverted? When I take just one country, the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Central Africa, it is estimated that somewhere around $6 to $7 billion per year is being plundered out of that country, out of corruption alone. So there has to come a time when, within the Global P.A.C, we kind of need to reassume a sense of pride, all right? It is unacceptable, in my opinion, where you have governments that are pillaging, plundering billions of dollars per year, but yet have to turn around and say, oh, we are getting aid from the United States or from this other country. Just digressing here, I remember when I was watching a couple months ago, when former President Jimmy Carter was being, people were paying his last respect, and there was a service, a memorial for him. And his son was talking about the great things that Jimmy Carter did in his life and all his, altruism and so on. And there's one thing he said, yeah, for example, it is Jimmy Carter that eradicated malaria in some African village. I can't recall if it's in malaria or there's some disease that Jimmy Carter would have eradicated in some village in Uganda. And to me, I'm like, come on, folks. Like this is the kind of stuff, right, that sometimes drives me crazy, because we have a continent that is filthy rich, potentially, with its resources, Africa. But I also look across like the Caribbean and so on. You trying to tell me that the whole Caribbean, like $2.5 billion, Latin America and the Caribbean, $2.5 billion cut from aid should result in catastrophic outcome in the countries? That is unfortunate. And which is why within this platform, political participation is a major pillar. There's the saying that says that people get the leaders they deserve. And unfortunately, if today we have leaders that are, corrupted to the core in many of our global P.A.C nations, and they can get away with it, is because there's no accountability, no pressure mechanism from the people. And that is just massively unfortunate. It is sad. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there won't be immediate pain and suffering that would come from funds being cut, because unfortunately, that is a reality too. The system is set up in such a way in many of the African countries, Caribbean countries, Latin America, that if that aid is cut, because, those government officials do not even fund those programs to begin with, real people will suffer from that. But what I'm saying is that in the long run, this should not be the case. And I actually see this as a wake-up call, as an opportunity to gradually start reassuming control of our destinies. If you recall, when I first started launching this Global P.A.C show a while back, I was talking about reassuming our destinies, right? I was talking about how, an American first approach of Donald Trump, which means that gradually the United States might take a step back in some arenas. And if you recall, I had mentioned that there would be a void that would be created, and that would be an opportunity to step in to step in and start strengthening uh, governments in the entire global pack, changing systems. This is actually an opportunity that I see here. All right, but that requires a certain pressure mechanism that needs to be applied by the people. I saw the same opportunity when there was COVID. I remember back then I was being interviewed with some TV channels. It was somewhere I was in the Congo running my business, my energy company. The It's an interview that I gave, and I remember saying that, look, what the COVID-19 had showed us was that the global supply chains were actually very fragmented and weak, but also there was also a sentiment that if things went south, the Western countries would very rapidly try to close on themselves. And we had started seeing, if you remember during COVID-19, one of the main word that was being used a lot in economic circles were relocation, as to where many countries saw that, you know what globalization did, it kind of forced us to export or outsource a lot of our production to other places. Now we're vulnerable, so it might behoove us to bring back a lot of that manufacturing capacity within our shores. And so countries in Europe and even the United States of America started talking about it. And back then, during that interview, it was an economic show. I remember saying that no, this is an opportunity to strengthen, production capacity in some of those countries. But unfortunately, that was another missed opportunity. Well, I'm seeing a similar opportunity now with this America First policy for Donald Trump. Yes, USAID or many other measures that are being taken will cause real chaos and suffering. But quite frankly, for our people in the global pack, this is when we need to come together and exert stiffer pressure mechanism, especially on elected or sometimes not elected government officials, to start reforming our systems, right? Because the means, it's not a problem of lack of means. As I said, the Congo alone, an estimated $7 billion per year pillaged out of the country. And here we're talking about USAID only being 6.5 billion for the whole of Africa. So I'm talking about one country. You have waste and corruption, embezzlement. That is more than the entire USAID budget, USAID budget. You see what I'm talking about? So it's not a problem of lack of resources. It's just a chronic mismanagement, but it's something that we should change. Which is why I'm going to plug in the mission of the Global Pack within the AfriKili umbrella. You know that our mission within this Global Pack is to build bridges and build coalitions, strong coalitions around the entire Global Pack world. Because it is only by strong coalitions, right, that we can eventually get to a critical mass and exert the sort of pressure that we want to see the changes that we want and elevate the condition and situations of the entire Global Pack. And which is why also I tend to speak a lot about issues that happen in the United States. There's a reason behind that. Whether we want it or not, decisions made within the United States impact the rest of the world. That is a given. I mean, I just spent 10 minutes talking about this here. But beyond that, the United States, something I really, one of the many reasons I really love the United States is that it is a fantastic melting pot of Black people from across the Global Pack. You have obviously our native African Americans that have been in the United States obviously for generations. We have immigrants from across the Global Pack world here in the United States, immigrants from Africa, from the Caribbean. You have first, second generation. So the sort of melting pot that you have in this nation is second to none. But that represents a tremendous opportunity to create fantastic coalitions that can then trickle down to respective nations around the world, while working in collaboration also with our brothers and sisters in the locations where they are, whether it's in continental Africa, whether it's in the Caribbean, whether it's in Latin America. Now, this is not as idealistic a concept as some people might think. We have the means to do that within the United States of America, within a Pan-Africanist framework, establish bridges and coalitions with different countries around the global pack. It is very feasible. Look, uh, sometimes I am accused of being a bit idealistic, but rest assured, this is not naivete and this is not idealism. Political action needs to be organized. I understand the importance of coming together around common causes. I also understand that diversity is a reality. I also understand that perfect unity will never happen in any setting, whether it's within racial groups, within artists, whatever population you take, you will always have diversity. That's a given. However, I believe in the power of identifying common causes, coming together, and putting our forces and resources together. And this mission within the Global Pack is one of those. If you want to be part of it, please hit the subscribe button. I'm going to take a quick pause here. Just hit the subscribe button on this channel so that you remain connected. You help us grow as we advance our mission. You remain connected. You participate in the conversation. And then ultimately, the goal is to also get out there, right? And as we have talks and we have gatherings and so on, but hit the subscribe button, share, send your feedback and comment. And if this is not your cup of tea, that is also okay. But I strongly urge you to identify the platform then that would work for you, but be part of the change. Change is needed. All right, change is needed. Ladies and gentlemen, let me, I think, end here for today. Is there anything else that I forgot to talk about here? Oh, yes, this is actually important to mention. I had it down in my notes here. You know, I talked about some of the waste. There was a news that I saw. It was about the Ghanaian president, John Mahama, who essentially issued a mandate to stop all first class travel by all government officials as a way to save, right, and reduce waste and government waste. Wow, I thought that was fantastic. I thought that was really awesome. It's a measure, but it's an important measure. But symbolically, that's important. First of all, if you're a government official, you're reportedly, being paid based on the hard labor of the population. Why should you use that and spend it on traveling first class? Get your behind in the coach seat. And if you want to pay more, use your own funds. So that's one. But stop using government funds for that. That was fantastic. I will bring up the Democratic Republic of Congo. Again, it's just a country that I know, but this could be applied to many different countries. In the DRC, for example, government spending amounted to like 60% of the government budget, which, again, ridiculous. When I talk about government spending here, it's salaries and bonuses here and there. Ridiculous. So what Ghana is doing is fantastic. And this is an example that needs to be copied, by other nations as well. But government waste, generally speaking, is something to fight. So in that sense, again, I guess some of the effort that Donald Trump and his team are wanting to do in terms of identifying waste could be commended, even though the approach is totally wrong. I'm totally against that. You cannot have somebody like an Elon Musk, who is a not an elected official, come in and have so much power in stopping the work done by government agencies. That approach I do not agree with. I agree with more pressure in a democratic way. Anyways, I digress. But so what John Mahama is doing in Ghana is fantastic, in my opinion. And it should be emulated, whether it's governments in Latin America, whether it's in the Caribbean, whether it's in Africa, across the global pack. Money is there to drastically and dramatically change the condition of our people in all those places. The money is there. Resources are there. Corruption is making it invisible, but the resources are there. So strong political participation is needed to put pressure mechanism on those people. And also remember what they say, right? The hand that gives is above the hand that receives. All this extending your hand to get help is ridiculous when you have the money and then you decide to use the money to buy, mansions and expensive cars while the people are suffering. That's a big no-no, if you ask me. That's a big no-no. They say Africa is the continent of the future. I believe it is the case. I believe that Africa has all the resources, and if we build a strong, powerful Africa, it will be for the benefit of all black people around the world, but not only that, for the benefit of humanity. Because Africa will assume its rightful places in the concert of nations, and we will strive towards a more equal world, which will be for the benefit of entire humanity. That is my belief, and that is what I'll continue pushing. As has become our tradition, we like ending with a positive quote, at least a quote just to inspire us. We're still within Black History Month, as you know. So on that note, happy Black History Month to our people out there, to everybody. All right, so the quote I want to use today is a quote by, let me put it on the screen here. It's a quote by, you should be seeing it on the screen. There you go. Today's quote is by Michelle Obama. Black History Month. Not all history has to be ancient history. All right, we're active participant of history, so we can use very recent history. And here, I love this quote by Michelle Obama because it's a quote she gave in 2011. As a matter of fact, it was on June 2nd, 2011. It was while she was on a trip in South Africa. And so she was in Soweto in South Africa, and she was given a keynote address in front of young girls, young women, as part of the Young African Women Leader Forum. And so the quote here that she says is, don't ever underestimate the impact you can have, because history had showed us that courage can be contagious and hope can take on life of its own. It was a bit small there. I'm going to make it big just for a second so you can read. It might hide my face. Okay, people, this is just, that's what happens when you're on live show and you're still working to figure out the tools. All right, so boom, my face will disappear so you can read it in big. There you go. So Tony is hidden behind Michelle Obama. All right, so don't ever underestimate the impact you can have, because history had shown us that courage can be contagious and hope can take on a life of its own. Man, I just love this. I love this. I love this. This is a fantastic quote. All right. Don't ever underestimate ourselves. Global P.A.C, AfriKili Nation, AfriKili family, Global P.A.C family. Let's not underestimate ourselves. The change we're seeking is very possible. All right. And at least I will do my part. I will never give up. I am so motivated, whether it is through this new format that just launched like 3 weeks ago, and that I know 2025, mark my words, 2025 will be a phenomenal year for the Global P.A.C. We'll do amazing altogether. And I invite you to join. Please hit that subscribe button and be part of this, and let's help grow this platform. Together we can reach greater heights. On that note, before closing, let me remind you that we are beautiful people. We're strong people. We're capable people. We're imaginative people. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And more importantly, we are the Global P.A.C. So until next time, peace be with you. Asante sana, which means thank you in Swahili. And once again, we are the Global P.A.C. Thank you very much.